Hi, my name is Joe Andruzzi. I'm a football analytics assistant with the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm a 2018 Florida State graduate. So go Noles, and thank you for having me on this speaker series. And I'm excited to talk. I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. I'm gonna basically talk about the trials and tribulations of my journey, and I feel like not a lot of sports analytics guys really talk about um, the path and all it takes to get there. So sit back and enjoy and listen to what I have to say. So I'm going to start with my journey, and I call it randomness and fate, and you'll learn why in a second. But basically, growing up, I really wasn't one of the smartest kids in terms of book smart. Because I really just didn't care about academics. I wish I could sit here and tell you I was a perfect ACT, SAT kid, but I really didn't care. But there was one thing for certain, and that was that I really loved football. I loved playing football, watching football, talking football, anything. Um, but yeah, throughout high school, I just never really applied myself. I was just an average student, and uh, long story short, I tried to play football at the University of West Florida. Um, just it never really worked out for me. Uh, this Probably one of the lowest points of my life. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was exercise science major at the time, and I just I knew I probably wasn't gonna play football anymore, and was just lost. And I was or driving home spring break, uh, probably like 5 in the morning to drive back home to Bradenton, Florida, where I'm from. And at around 7 a.m., 2 hours into the drive, my car hood starts smoking, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I eventually pull over, and immediately the front of my hood's in flames, and I'm like just in shock at this point, and I get out. Luckily, I only had a few things. I only had my backpack and my bag of laundry, and I get out of the car and I like take off, and I'm just sitting on my bag of laundry on the side of I-10, just watching my car burn down. And this is already one of the lowest points in my life, and I'm like just sitting there in my bag of laundry, watching my car burn down. I took a picture. It's like no one's gonna believe me. And I'm literally just like, what? Are you gotta be kidding me, right? Like it's a 1998 Oldsmobile 88, and I don't know how it caught on fire, but it was just one of those points in my life where I was like, man, just kicking me while I'm down. So luckily, oh, not to mention my phone's on like 16%, and luckily I had a friend nearby, and where this happened was 15 miles off of the campus, 15 miles from the campus of Florida State. And luckily I had a friend, and I called him like 7 in the morning. It's like, hey, long story short, my car caught on fire. Can I come stay with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And like, it, the rest is history from there. Like, I go and stay at his dorm and just look at the campus, and I just immediately fell in love. And I'm like, I'm going here. So that was the transition to Florida State. I never really thought I would do something like this, but it all worked out in the end. And I transferred to Florida State, and yeah, that's how I ended up there. So right when I got to Florida State, I was pretty behind in school because I really didn't care still, and I wasn't projected to graduate on time in my current major, exercise science, which I really didn't care about. I just did it, even though I hated chemistry, biology. I still did all that. So day one in the guidance counselor, I'm like, okay, what do I have to do to graduate on time? And she pulled up a list of majors that I could choose from, that I could transfer over easily and still graduate on time based on the coursework required. And one of the she had a list, and statistics was the first one. And before we even got to the end of the list, I was like, looked at us like, that one, statistics. She's like, are you sure? You gotta be kidding me. Like, that's pretty difficult. I was like, I don't care. Like, math, that was probably one of my strongest subjects, even though I was pretty still average at it. Um, so I went with it, and I was like, statistics, let's switch it. And we did it, and it was just a wake up call for me. And I really had to start studying and taking it seriously. And that's when everything just started to click for me. When I'm sitting in class, I'm just thinking about how I can just relate this material to football. And my first ever project was using linear regression to predict a college quarterback going into the NFL based on some college statistics. It was the most simple, basic uh, linear regression model ever, and I was literally so proud of it. And I was just became obsessed. I was like, you can take this data and make a prediction, even though it was literally so basic. But that's what like really started to ignite the flame, and my love for statistics and coding. It started at Florida State. It's like it opened up my my mind to just all the things I can accomplish and what I can learn. So every project I did, I just related to football, and it helped me learn actually all the theorems and everything. I would just relate to football. It's pretty crazy. So I hit the ground running, and I was always in the Strozier and in the library. So, and what is it, Dirac? Is that still there? But yeah, and but let me tell you, it was an absolute struggle because, granted, I was really didn't have any money. I know it's like the stereotypical like broke college kid, uh, and I had no internship experience. So, and I'm working at like these restaurants trying to make money and paying for tuition and yeah, it was just a struggle. I remember just like my final year, my friends are all like in their senior year and they're like coasting. It's like easy for them, and I'm like seeing them like having fun, going out and partying. I'm like, I have to freaking study for this exam. So it was a struggle, and I was just became obsessed with like needing to graduate on time and get a job so I can have money. So I have just applied to like hundreds of places, got rejected so many times. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been rejected in job interviews, and finally I somehow uh, got a job offer in Sarasota, Florida, which is right by where I'm from, as a data analyst for a company. And yeah, it was just the most relieving feeling ever. Is just finally securing a job, and just my time at Florida State it was just it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work, but I learned a lot, and I'm so thankful for it. Yeah, so life after college, I mean, it was definitely different. I was mainly coding in SAS and Excel. Well, just not coding in Excel, but just using Excel on a daily basis. Um, and eventually, just after reading just more about data science and data analytics, I eventually switched to using R, and I was coding in R for a bit, doing a data analysis for my current company, and after reading some more, I eventually switched to Python because I wanted to do more um, predictive modeling and machine learning, and there were just more resources, in my opinion, in Python, and I just like it more from the sense of predictive modeling. So if you're trying to choose between the two, and I would say they're the top dogs in terms of machine learning and predictive modeling. Uh, I would say R is very very good in a way that it in terms of you need something quick, you need quick analysis on something, and you need plots and graphs. I think it's perfect. But I think Python is just think you can do more in terms of predictive modeling, and that's what I went with. Um, Nothing against R, it's just something I personally chose, and I still code in primarily Python today. But yeah, I was trying to learn these languages on the weekend and in textbooks that I would download from sites where you could download textbooks for free. I'm sure you college kids out there know what I'm talking about. But yeah, on my weekends I was just grinding in textbooks and teach myself how to code and how I could apply it to my current job. Um, and it really helped me. And I was also using it for fantasy football and in how I could project fantasy football points. So I was still just insanely obsessed with football, but I was also applying it to my current job. And yeah, it was just I was promoted to a senior data analyst level role, uh, but the company was in telecommunications, so I wasn't really the biggest fan of it. Uh, I didn't really see myself working in telecommunications for the longest time, but I was so thankful for the role, and I learned a lot, and it was just overall it was a really good experience. And that's when I finally dove full time into football, and I'll get into that right now. So I had worked with NFL data before. I was using NFL FastStar data to project fantasy football points, and I was getting really comfortable with that. And that's basically just play-by-play data, very descriptive, but it's not that massive of a data set in when you compare it to um, what I'm about to get into, and that is NFL's Big Data Bowl. And that is basically they released NFL tracking data. So in I think when I first discovered it, they were doing a competition of predicting the how many yards a running back would get at the time of handoff. And the data set they released is just a game changer in my opinion. So there's two tracking devices in the shoulder pads of every player on the field, and it can show their X and Y coordinates, their speed, acceleration, direction, and orientation for every player on the field every tenth of a second. Um, so if you think about it, if you were just to look at the data in Excel, one play is roughly 1,000 rows of data. So I mean, if you think about an NFL game and it's roughly like 150 to 180 plays a game, it adds up. Like just one game of data is just massive. So uh, I was very overwhelmed when I first got into this data. Nearly broke my computer loading it all in. But um, that year I basically just failed miserably. I was just trying to work with the data. Um, it's very overwhelming. So what I did was I would basically just take one single play and I would just try to master that one play. I would just look at it and see what I can do. I would animate, show the play in the tracking data, and then look at all the features in the data and understand how all of it worked. So I failed miserably. I don't even think I did a submission that year. Um, and then the following year, they did. I think the category was do something on the defensive side of the ball in terms of coverage, like defensive backs. And by that time, I had been working with this data a lot, and I felt very comfortable with it because I just became obsessed with understanding and trying to master this data. So I hit the ground running immediately. I think I did maybe like 5 to 8 notebooks or submissions, um, and the rules were you can only submit one. So I kind of was just doing them for fun and just seeing how many ideas I could come up with at the time. And the one I finally submitted was evaluating cornerbacks' ability to cover a receiver after they make a cut. So as you can see, I'm using various features at the time the receiver makes his cut. So like the orientation difference, um, we can see how disoriented the cornerback was, the velocity difference, and the separation were just a few of the features that went into the model. But then we could actually get a cover score to evaluate the corner. So we could do this for every single coverage play he had. And what's so unique about this is you can invert it and you can actually look and see and evaluate the receiver and his ability to separate. So I thought that was really cool, and I guess other people thought it was cool too because I was selected as a finalist that year. I won some money, and I got to, unfortunately, it was during COVID, so I didn't get to go to the combine, but I presented my work to NFL teams, and teams reached out, and I wasn't really hired right away, but there was at least interest there. And eventually the Cardinals reached out. I went through the whole interview process, and eventually I was hired, and it was literally the one of the greatest moments ever. Like it just, I'm so thankful to that organization and taking a chance on me. But also thank you to Michael Lopez for putting on the Big Data Bowl because I don't know where I'd be without it. And yeah, it's so many people come in through that pipeline and are getting hired to the NFL because working with tracking data is not an easy task. And if you can show that you can work with it and show something, even if you don't even have to be a finalist, you can be an honorable mention. You could even just submit something and hey, you can get hired by an NFL team. And I just think that's amazing. Yeah, so working in Arizona, I mean, it's pretty. I actually really enjoy it. Um, so one of the things about it, it's a very small team. It's basically me and my coworker Nick and my boss. So it's very small. Hopefully we can expand in the coming years, but we do offer internships in the summer, so we'll see. But yeah, it's a very small team, and that requires us to wear many hats, and you dip your toes into basically everything. We're not siloed into working on a specific thing. We are basically, uh, Nick and I are basically working on everything in the realm of football, and it is actually a lot. It's a lot. So there's player personnel, and well, there's two main ones. So there's player personnel, and from here you can that's basically the on your current roster and salary cap analysis and doing things like that. Free agency, creating metrics to evaluate free agents, um, and projecting how much actually they're going to get paid. What is the appropriate salary that they should be making based on the performance of the field? So things like that. And my favorite is the NFL draft and basically projecting a college athlete's success going into the NFL. And it is a tough task, but I really enjoy it, and it is one of my favorite things I get to work on. So And then here we have is the other big thing is that's the coaching side. So in season, where we're helping game plan for the opponent, and this is just looking and showing tendencies, creating advanced metrics on players, and basically looking at how their players perform, how our players perform. So, and we do a self-scout evaluation. So basically looking at our tendencies, are we being too predictable? What can we improve? What plays aren't working? So it's just some things like that. I don't want to give away too much of what we do, but this is the overall gist of it. Uh, but yeah, we're also working on some injury analysis, trying to prevent injuries, and there's a lot more when you dive into it. But this is just the overall the main sectors that you're going to work on. So I'm going to try and give you a blueprint on how to get your foot in the door in the sports analytics realm. So the first thing I would say is choose a coding language. And there's really only two main ones out there that are very popular amongst sports analytics clubs, and that is R or Python. I know R is very popular in the football analytics realm, um, mainly because you can do a lot there. And it's quick, and you can create a lot of plots and visualizations. But then there's Python, which in my opinion is the way to go in terms of predictive modeling and machine learning. And I just think there's more resources out there, and as things advance, uh, there's new methods of modeling coming out each year. I just think Python is the way to go, and I code in Python, so I might be a little biased, but the choice is yours. But I also think having a base level knowledge of SQL will really help you. You don't have to know any of the advanced queries, but just basic queries and understanding how SQL works will really help you um, in your journey, and not even sports, but I'm in other companies as well. Find a data set to practice with, and the best one that I was using was NFL FastR, and I know there's equivalent data sets out there for different sports, um, but if you can, I would say try your hand at NGS tracking data. The Big Data Bowl goes back to a couple of years, and they had tracking data available publicly, and I would just try your hand at that if you want to work in the NFL, because that is the future. I think anyone coming through the pipeline uh, should really have a grasp on that data. Next, I would say develop a strong domain knowledge of the sport you're interested in. So if it's soccer, basketball, football, try to understand and watch it and just fully grasp everything. I mean, I've been watching football for years, and I wouldn't say I'm a complete a master of all football knowledge, but I would say it's very strong, and I have the ability to ask the right questions. And if you can ask the right questions, you can improve creativity, and it will help you in your journey in sports analytics. Is asking unique questions, and this will help you problem solve. Um, Solve problems and create new innovative metrics with your data set that you're practicing on. So strong domain knowledge, this will help. And share your work publicly on Twitter or LinkedIn. I know the NFL analytics community, they're all really nice people. They will help you out. So even if you fail or whatever you make is very simple, just post it. Just show that you have the ability to do something and that you're curious, and you'll get better. So yeah, that's what we all did. And we always, a lot of people that work in the NFL right now posted their work on Twitter or shared it somehow. And next, I would say try your hand at some Kaggle tournaments. Even if you fail, you will learn a lot. There's a lot of different modeling techniques, and I would highly suggest it. So I'm going to try and give some advice to anyone trying to get their foot in the door in the sports analytics realm. Or some of this advice could honestly just translate to any uh, job that you're trying to apply for as well. But be able to explain your findings. Your work is really only as good as your ability to communicate. I mean, you could be a PhD candidate from Harvard and create the most accurate predictions, but if you can't explain your model and how it works and how you're getting the predictions and explain it to a non-technical audience, then it's really hard to get buy-in from upper management uh, to use your work. So just work on your communication skills, I think is huge, and I think it will really help you moving forward. Uh, don't be a robot. I say this because the NFL and I'm sure other leagues and teams are like this, but like you spend a lot of time with these guys, and like you're gonna do more than just talk about numbers and analytics. And so like we here at Arizona, we hang out with the scouts all the time. We hang out with the coaching staff, and just we're not always talking about numbers all day. So I think just don't be a robot. If you're reaching out on LinkedIn or wherever, Twitter, just try to be unique and have something to show. I know you reach out in good faith and you just want a moment of our time and like a 10 to 15-minute call, but like we're all pretty busy. But I think if you were to show something, say, hey, I have this project that I want you to take a look at. Could you critique it maybe, or let me know what you think? And honestly, that's perfect. Like we love that. But yeah, it's reaching out. I know it's what a lot of people do, but try to be unique. Always be prepared. So if you're applying somewhere and we like your resume, then I just hope you have a project in mind or something to show for it. Um, but always be prepared because you never know. You never know. Fail, fail, fail. Failure is you're gonna be rejected from jobs. You're gonna you're gonna fail a lot in this, and we've all been there. So do not get discouraged. It is a learning lesson. Understand what you did wrong and fix it, improve, get better. That's what it's all about. So fail. Failure is a good thing. So I'm going to talk about some areas of opportunity that I think might be in demand in the future. Um, I know when I was in college, I kind of want to know what might be in demand and where I should allocate some of my time researching. Um, Injury prevention, I think this is huge. If you're able to derive any insights and be able to prevent injuries in any way, it would be very, very valuable to any club that you're working with, regardless of the sport. Pose estimation. Uh, this is kind of, so this is uh, using computer vision, and this kind of captures what tracking data can't. So you can look at elbow and knee flexion, and you can just derive a lot of new metrics with this. And I think it is very interesting. And if you're able to do it, I would think it's very valuable to a club. Offensive line play, specifically run blocking. There's not a lot of metrics out there for offensive linemen. If you're able to do something like this, whether you have the NGS tracking data or somehow create new metrics for offensive line play, I think it would be very, very valuable. And next this is the universal theory of everything. This is the major problem in the NFL and just football in general, is attributing credit/blame to every player on the field for each play. This is the question that everyone asks, and it is, if you're able to somehow achieve this solution, then any team will hire you immediately. It's just non-football related, but golf shot link data. It is available out there if you know how to pull it and are able to derive some insights from it. I think that can be very valuable because, in my opinion, I haven't really seen much on it, but it's basically data that shows XY coordinates of every single shot in the PGA. So yeah, just a couple of things to take note. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you to Florida State for just letting me talk about my journey and where I think some areas of opportunity are, and just some advice on how to get your foot in the door in the industry. So thank you, and go Noles.